On a quiet winter morning in July, family and friends arrive at the National Motor Museum in Birdwood to send a group of car enthusiasts off on the annual Oz Outback Odyssey. In just over a week, these teams will be on a Queensland beach soaking up the sunshine. But to get there, they'll tackle some tough outback tracks and choke on plenty of red dust. All to raise money for the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
Well, it's fantastic because it's really about community engagement at a couple of levels. Obviously, it's engaging with the people, the entrants themselves, who raise money for the RFDS, which is fantastic. But then it's also the engagement with the communities that we visit. And of course, we look after the outback and we're visiting the outback. So we're travelling through those towns and we're spending money in those towns. And particularly this year with a lot of dry areas and a lot of drought, they really need that economic boost.
The boys from Karratha and Car 05 are paying tribute to the king of the mountain. Hey, they're big boots to fill, guys.
This is our Holden HQ Car 6, and we hope to get to the other end and all in one piece. So we decided that, I want to be a part of this, so we're raising the money for the right purposes. So yeah, it's well worth it. It's a fantastic cause.
All the Q gadgets are in Car 007, including a roof-mounted rocket and an accelerator cleverly disguised as a brake pedal. About to get the show started, the Muppets in Car 8 make it clear that they're not taking things seriously. The Skull and Crossbones say it all for the fittingly named Kingswood Voyage of the Mad, as brothers-in-law Ryan and Danny take time off work to drive hard and play hard. And if you like your ride big, loud and bright, Car 45 has it all in spades. Herbie's turning Japanese. With a Subaru in the back, Car 53 is far from your average Beetle. From Sydney, bush-bashing veterans Warwick and Luke in Car 74 are known as the Doctors, and, well, that's because they are. Yeah, could come in handy. And there's more here than meets the eye. With a 351 Cleveland purring under the bonnet, this F100 is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And Red Gum might sing that sports cars are next to useless running cattle grids and riverbeds, but tough little Dado Car 260's out to prove them wrong. Russell Sherwood and his crew have a lot of outback miles to do before this Sigma surf wagon sees an ocean break again. And Donald Fry's pristine Kingswood wagon returns for another hiding in the bush. The question is, what the hell is it doing out of the showroom? Matt, Drew and Chris intend to push legendary German engineering to its limits in their thirsty Merc this year. Maybe one of the best barn finds ever. Longtime RFDS supporters Roger and Mick have spent years optimising their Falcon to conquer the outback. Let's see how they go on yet another Odyssey. And then there's the Sandman, also known as the microwave. Paul and Dave are out to prove that there's life in the old wagon yet. Commodores have proven their worth on the Odyssey, and if John can get Ben out at the swag and onto the start line in the mornings, Car 700 is in with a good chance. Famous for keeping the Beast mechanic team working overtime, maybe 777 might hit the jackpot this year instead. And finally, in drives Miss Daisy, a great old gal, proudly carrying the red, white and blue livery of the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
Well, you can't miss us because we're car 1928, and of course that's the year that Reverend John Flynn founded the RFDS. It's a 1970 Ford Fairlane and hasn't had a lot of money spent on it. It's still pretty original, but we're often the first out every morning, but we're guaranteed to be always the last home. So we're the slowest in the group.
Okay, we're all revved up, ready to go, and we've got a surprise for them this morning.
The surprise wasn't far away. A short diversion off the highway into the Bend, South Australia's brand new motorsport park. A green light opportunity to really put the foot down.
was absolutely surprised that we went to the track, and I just put a Subi motor in the back of the car, so it was good fun to give it a good rip up around there and get around a few cars.
That was bloody awesome experience, and yeah, probably went through half a tank of fuel doing it, but well worth it.
Next stop, Murrayville Oval for lunch and the very first roadblock.
In the past, we've had a motorised bar stool, which has been a lot of fun. This year, the esky, a lot of fun, and I guess the reason we do it is because we're all stupid. So it's a 15 horsepower motor, 4-stroke motor, and with basically go-kart gearing and brakes for safety, of course. And yeah, an esky for the beer, because it can be a dry trip around that course sometimes.
So we've got a bit of a fuel leak, and we think by jamming the rag in there and lighting it,
It'll go
keep
faster.
the lighters away, it might just stop it from coming out, which feels
A bit better.
pretty good at the moment actually. I think we might have fixed the problem.
Back on the road, it's off to Werrimal in Victoria, along the Underball track. And it wasn't too long before this control section began to show its teeth, catching more than a few by surprise.
Sure, I might have broken axle.
Everyone got stuck here, and then we got bogged just trying to get going again. Not good, not good. Big traffic jam up there.
2 cars bogged, one tried to go around old mate and his clutch is smoking, so I think we need a bit of a hand.
Just get it yanked back that way, it'll be right. Nah, it's all right. It's good fun.
But it was all fuel for conversation over some cold beers and live music turned on by the good folk at the Werrimal pub before the nightly ritual of Russell Ebert's personal view of the winners and losers of a hard day on the road.
So there you get our arsehole of the day award. No, there's no defence, put the money in. This much treasured item will be worn all day, must be worn for 24 hours and brought to tomorrow night's presentation. Not only hit a tree but got stuck once going up the hill and then got stuck again going down the hill. With no particular put money in there.
Good. Whoa, nice work.
Hang on, I'm in credit, okay?
Whoa! Well, you know you're going to fuck up there.
A chilly Werrimal morning saw the arrival of an old friend, the mongrel.
This was the Ararat school bus from Ararat to Moyston, and it already did huge miles, did 25-year service, of course. Another 500,000 since then.
And while some were just waking up, others had spent the night under their car, not sleeping next to it.
So yesterday on the track we snapped our upper control arm, and I don't know how they did it, but the beast managed to weld it all back together again. 1:30 this morning we thought we were ready to go, and we realised the uni joint was gone as well, so we replaced that, and now we're good to go. So very happy about that.
With 440 kilometres to cover, everyone was soon out on the road, fueling up and ready for business. The first control section seemed easy enough, but chance for the navigators to relax and drivers to settle into rhythm. But the long straights and sweeping bends caught a few by surprise. In a remote corner of New South Wales, the family from Wairama Station put on a great spread for lunch and a chance for their kids to raise money for the Isolated Children's Parents Association. Time to stretch the legs, but not for too long. The afternoon control section pointed the group to Neelyagari Station. Not the first time that Greg and Lily Martin had hosted the Odyssey, and they were game enough to do it again. This year, their private airstrip came in handy.
They had a fundraiser for the Flying Doctors, auctioned off 5 seats for flight on this plane leaving from Neelyagari, and we were the lucky bidders on 2 of those seats. So we're about to go.
Well, how often do you get a chance to go out in a plane like this?
You know, Keith said you're just going to leave us the keys.
Oh, well, the keys are in it.
The campgrounds at Neelyagari sit along the banks of the Darling River. Travellers are welcome to kayak, fish, camp, to stay for a night or as long as they like. Today though, there was a roadblock to face before you could roll out the swag. Points won at daily roadblocks are added to each car's tally, so this cannon shoot is serious stuff. By this time on day 2, everyone knows each other, and there's no better place to swap stories from the day than over some cold beers by a warm fire.
I'm wearing the vest because I hit a tree yesterday, got bogged twice, held up the entire group, but thank God I get to get rid of it tonight.
The exhaust was making a fair bit of noise. We're happy to be here. It was a bloody good view. Very, very nice.
And I loved it. No dramas. Very, very...
I got lost, Judy.
Yeah, oh, there he got lost a bit, but we've...
Only once.
And I said, I'm not quite sure how dangerous this grid is. I said to Sandy, so we'll just pull up just in front of it next to it. I'll get out of the car and just pace around it, and then we'll reverse it and do it properly, now that I know it's reasonably safe, because we're all about safety.
Day 3, the longest day of the event, with more than 500 kilometres to cover before dark. After a great night at Neelyagari, it was time to say goodbye and head north. The morning control section took the Odyssey through Bilba Station on tracks with plenty of washaways and creek crossings. And it's always handy to have an ambulance in the group. Nurse Vicky and the Flying Doctor Land Cruiser brought her husband Spence Denny along for the adventure. Well, can you? An outback town with a colourful history was today's mandatory stop. Time to restock and refuel, but no time to look around. The clock was ticking with more than 200 k's to cover before lunch.
The nut come off the shocky. The shocky slipped out and jammed up underneath and it's bent the bolt. So we're now trying to remount it and get the bolt out, but it's a bit long, so we have to grind it off.
When full, the lake at Kurna Station covers around 130 hectares. There's no water here now, so the dry, dusty lake bed has been earmarked for a bit of action.
So the idea is take off through the cones, chuck a lefty and keep all the cones on your right hand side, go round the track. When you get to the finish, spin the car around and then you have to reverse it back into the cones where you started from, and that's where your time finishes.
And even the support crews got the chance to compete. And a few Harry Hots just couldn't resist the opportunity to show off their circle work skills. Sneakily set up in a creek bed, a roadblock after lunch slowed everyone up. Even the locals weren't moving too fast.
The aim here is to take 3 hubcaps per car. You can do it one at a time per person, or one person can throw all 3. Up to you, and you throw it any way you like through that hoop.
My grandmother can throw harder than that.
It's been interesting. There's been some tremendous shots.
Oh!
I
got 2.
Oh, beautiful shot. There's been some spectacular failures. It's not for sheep stations, is it?
The first meeting of the Australian Labor Party.
Everyone got a quiz sheet earlier and they're filling out the answers, frantically trying to get everything right. Some of them are a little bit tricky.
In a little country pub, in a town that no one quite knew how to pronounce, they were getting ready for the Odyssey invasion.
Okay, basic quiet, Charlie, security in order. We've got the awards happening, which is the most important part of the day. The driving is just a minor part of it. Here tonight, we're at Winnering. I'd really like to think... Winnering. Okay, I'll pay the fine,
And about that quiz, well, Luke and Shay didn't take it all that seriously.
Bernie Stack, were you born in Murrigal? The name of the 7th planet, you might have spelt this a bit wrong, but you put Uranus. Uranus. How long is a kangaroo when it's born? 6 foot. What do you like? Oh yeah, which 2 rivers join in Wentworth? Yonka, Paringa. Well done, boys.
And raising more money for the Flying Doctor, Russell was hot on handing out some token fines.
They were virgins when they left, but I'm not too sure now, because at our car challenge at Kuna Station, and it was about the quickest around, as you all understood. Well, Spence Denny didn't really understand. He'd taken Vicky over the other side of the dry lake there, and was taking a very, very long time. By the time he got back, Vicky said it's the longest he's taken at anything. So he gets our NADA award today.
Jacket.
Well done, Spence. And Vicky would like it to last a bit longer tonight, she said.
Wanaring put on a great night for the Odyssey, but first light was the cue to pack up and head north once more. Just out of town, another roadblock, this time to test out everyone's slingshot skills. It's important to get the border crossing into Queensland right at Hungerford. There's a $1,000 penalty if you don't close the gate and the wild dog fence. It's also known as the rabbit fence. A bit strange really, because there's rabbits on both sides. Henry Lawson trekked through here in 1892 on his way across the Great Grey Plains, but these days it's pretty much a town with a pub next to a fence. Next stop for fuel and lunch was Yower, an opal town with a population of around 100, mostly miners with galleries and opal studios. It's pretty much flat here except for the bluff, the perfect spot for a bit of 10-pin bowling and the chance to grab back some valuable roadblock points. But then the day's control section swung into action. Up until now it had been all dry tracks, but that's about to change. Hecklers or spectators. Either way, they picked the best location on the banks of this creek crossing. Some made it through easily. Others, well, not so great. And that wasn't the only creek crossing that caught drivers out. Famous for its lack of clearance, all eyes were on the Datto. And when you're literally stuck in the mud, of course some official's going to seize the opportunity to keep the doctor flying.
So a tow is worth a donation point. And you're lucky because you're far enough out of the water that you're not going to have to get wet.
the other one, last one was alright, a little bit scary, but we just popped up, no worries. But this one is like, yeah, could have gone faster.
For the next 2 nights, the town of Toonpine is home to the Odyssey. It's literally the pub with no town, as less than 5 people live here. There's no fuel, no store, no houses, just a pub. Literally in the middle of nowhere.
Rob and Desiree are our hosts, and thank them very, very much for the tea tonight. Fantastic work, there's Rob back there.
Yes, it's a pretty good effort to serve up fresh prawns when you're 900 kilometres from the nearest coast.
I've had an issue with some wheel problems. We're trying to avoid that. So Gabby Barker is going to check all your nuts before you leave in the morning. So Gabby, put up your hand again. So that's the hand she's going to use.
Yes, safety is paramount on the Odyssey, so thanks for that, Keith. But what did Russell pick up on today that's worthy of a fine?
All in all, it was a pretty good control, and everyone made it through the first crossing unassisted, which was brilliant, except for one. Darren Constable,
In my defence.
I'm not real keen on modern technology, as you know, but today we have photos. Now, nada today, Darren.
Then Charlie came up with the idea to auction off a VIP exclusive package to put a few more dollars in the tin by subbing himself out of car 1928.
This is very exclusive. So you get the day with the silverback, and so it's all day in 1928. Part of the privilege is you get a delayed start, so we never leave early. We're always last to go. So you're going to sleep in the morning. It includes the VIP food and beverage package. So it's all you can drink all day. If you don't drink, that's fine. You can still come along and watch Willie drink. So
I've been fine with those.
And at the halfway mark, a quick check of who's sitting on the podium.
Our overall winning positions at the moment in third with 110.6 points. We have car 500 in second position, 110.8. We have 777, and it just shows how important each section is. And it's not the best driver, the fastest driver, the best at Roadblocks. It's the overall winner. And leading today with 111.6 points is the Muppets.
Circular route with 2 more control stages today will hopefully see everyone back in Toonpine in time for dinner.
Looking forward to it.
There's 40 kilometres to cover in the first control section, with plenty of challenges to keep the drivers honest and give suspension systems a fair workout. When you see a support vehicle standing by a creek crossing, some like to take it seriously. Others, yeah, not so much.
How do you reckon we'll go?
Well, let's hope the Flying Doctor boys have plenty of supplies on board. This could take a while. The good thing was there were plenty of opportunities today to blow the cobwebs out. Like the hare and the tortoise, On the Odyssey, everyone is free to choose their own pace. Winning the day is all about achieving the average speed of the first 10 cars to come in, plus roadblock points. It's all about getting the right time, not the fastest time.
Won't change gears. A bit of damage in one of those creek beds, I think.
And at the end, a chance to swap stories while the tail enders catch up.
Yeah, no brakes, and it just lifts the car. You know, when we hit the rocket, it just lifts the car up about a foot off the ground, straight over the top. Didn't even know there was creek crossing there.
Bit of a challenge, all them hard crossings.
Got bogged. Stuck. It's quite easy to put it in the creek, put it in first, roll it out and keep going.
Got to get a pilot's licence because it was all pointing up that way.
Once the band was back together, it was straight into the second control section. Another 30 kilometres to cover before lunch, but at one stage a few weren't too sure they'd get a feed at all. Recent rains had covered the surveyed track, so like that famous African pygmy tribe, it was anyone's guess which way to go.
We have the lake on our right, so if we know where that direction is, we can sort of head that way. Yeah, well, that's been blocked off by someone, so they don't want us to go that way. Yeah, we're not in the right spot, 500, so you go the other way, maybe.
I think we just go around this puddle. And then soon we're going to rejoin the track.
The route notes might point to a lake nearby, but when you can't see over the scrub, a video drone sure comes in handy.
Now there should be a veer right, track on left.
Yep.
Yep, there.
Yeah, we're definitely on the right track.
Should be a gate coming up in point 1.
Oh, look at that.
You must have the best navigator in town.
And then there was the sneaky little cockies gate that proved to be a trap for young players.
No, other end of it. What f***ing ring?
Going for some potato salad, coleslaw, good old pineapple. Oh, and there's chicken. Jesus. Feed the man meat.
So the food today was all donated by the local different communities. So we all just got together. Oh, it's always really exciting to have lots of different interesting cars and just to break the routine of the day-to-day, especially in all these droughts at the moment. And it's just really good to be able to get a bit of money for the charities. So we really enjoy it.
And Eromanga Station has a bit of motoring history of its own.
Fencing contractor left it there in 1956. He got bogged. That was the end of it. Just left it there.
Hundreds of miles away from the nearest traffic light, an official seized the chance to perform good deeds for the doctor as crews moved out. Back in Turnpine, there was plenty of action with 3 roadblocks underway at once. First, the piston challenge.
Over here we've got a rotating rope. There's a pin in the centre, a rope with a large piston hanging on it, and the driver's got to hold the rope, keep the piston off the ground and do a circle at the same time, and it's very heavy.
The motorised esky got another good workout. And the town tennis court doubled as a cricket pitch of a different kind. And the transient crowd of Toonpine were loving it.
It's fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. It is the best rally I've ever seen. They are so funny. It's great. I love it.
Back in the pub, it was time to catch up over some pre-dinner beers and to see how Isabel went with the boys in 1928.
I had a fantastic day. They were all very nice to me. Pity we broke down, and I have a new pink shirt. Yeah, I'm part of the team now. I hope tomorrow the car will work.
On day 5, the volunteer officials get a bit of glory. 9 cars and crews which form the backbone of the event. Often out at first light and last back at the camp, they run the roadblocks, take the time, shoot the video, administer first aid, and cop flack when the route notes are wrong.
I think we've got a few angry men on our hands. They got a bit lost out there.
And remember that cockies gate?
Take the ring off the pipe. What ring?
Now, Matt, you may or may not be aware, is arguably the most decorated engineer in Australia. Now, he's come across the gate. The guys have insulted him by saying, you know, well, you need a hand with that gate. And of course he didn't. So he's gone out the gate and he's gone from one side of the gate to the other side of the gate. Then he's gone back into the car and got his slide rule and calculator out, and he's gone out there. He's got himself tangled in the gate, and luckily, Goldilocks and her bear, as in Tracy and Matt, have come along, and Tracy's got him out of the gate, managed to shut the gate for them. Then they've gone to the next gate, and he's got out of the back seat of the car, opened the door. This is an ordinary gate, not very well engineered, and he's managed to open that gate okay. And he's called the car through, they've driven through, smashed the door on the gate post because he's forgot the shutter. So Matt, the Muppet engineer, you got a fine for embarrassing the Odyssey.
That evening also saw the arrival of a familiar and very welcome friend.
Look, the beast was off the road for 48 hours. The bell housing separated off the back of the engine block and it emptied the contents of the oil out of the engine. Keith got one of his mechanics from Adelaide and come up and helped us, and we've rolled in Toonpine about 6 o'clock, and we're going to be with the rally hopefully now for the rest of the duration.
With the beast back in town and a never-ending job list, you know it's going to be a long night. After 2 nights, it was time to put Toonpine behind, following 2 days of great hospitality. The weather was getting warmer as the Odyssey headed towards Charleville. Always, of course, keeping off the bitumen as much as possible. The first roadblock of the day came in the form of a netball challenge, and it was pretty obvious that these guys might have had more luck hitting the mark with a football than the round ball. A broad expanse of red dust seemed the perfect location to attempt a group photo. It was a bit like herding cats, and in spite of a few late arrivals, the cars and support teams eventually lined up for the big shot. With a control section slated for later in the afternoon, lunch was first on the agenda at Charleville Oval, where the piston throw-up roadblock had everyone either wound up or ducking for cover.
He's going to knock himself out.
Which way does it have to go?
That way or this way?
Oh, I didn't know those rules. I got stopped by the wall.
The control section on day 6 was full of long stretches, lots of cattle grids and no shortage of dips and creek crossings. It's hard to imagine that the area around Charleville can be flooded right out when the Warrego River rises, but in the grip of a drought, these old back roads were just what the drivers were looking for.
Which way?
And even in the middle of nowhere, there's always a few locals around to keep things interesting. Late afternoon saw the crews arrive in Morven, a town with a population of around 200. A tiny outback town that couldn't be more different than its namesake, a village in the Scottish Highlands. With the beast parked on the oval, everyone was settling in for another great evening. While Russell was writing up his fines, the drums were filled with firewood while the local ladies gathered in force to cook up a storm.
John O'Crawford, $10 fine for sabotage. I think, Vicky, you've got the wrong idea of the meaning of entrant. So, you've got a $10 fine for soliciting. Next thing you know, out of the dark comes this silver Prado flying into the crowd. And all you could hear was Derek screaming out, "Praise to Allah, praise to Allah." Anyway, everybody luckily jumped out of the way. He missed everyone. He's gone around to try and clean up a few of those grey nomads, but they were quick to scuttle into their caravans and lock the doors. We locked them in the storeroom overnight, and apparently they did admit that they had been in contact with Al-Qaeda over the last 3 years, and it was a planned attack. But once Derek found out that he may have to take an extra wife, he quickly came round. So the punishment for Derek and Judy, they're on a good behaviour bond till the rest of the Odyssey, and there's a $10 fine each for an act of terrorism.
While the Odyssey raises money for the Flying Doctors, it also gives back to local communities. Auction items were put up for bid in Morven, with all funds raised going straight to the Isolated Children and Parents Association.
Car 45, Tim, Ben and Shane, please stand up and come forward. Breaking a windscreen is bad enough, but then telling our officials, particularly me, that a giant wedge-tailed eagle dropped a horse on your windscreen is absolutely bullshit. Latch your bonnet, you dopes, when you're going to do 110 or 120 mile an hour. Latch your bonnet down, you won't have a smashed windscreen. Muppets, come up here again, please. No spark this morning, no start. Gets going and stops again. Fellas, no spark and no fuel means no go. Refuel your bloody car. Well done, well done, well done.
And when he's not behind the wheel of his HQ Kingswood, Darren Constable has been known to pull out his guitar to entertain the troops. And in Morven, he didn't let them down.
was thinking to myself, and I thought to myself, I'm going to sing with you. I was thinking, what am I going to build for a bash car? I thought I'd build a bloody HQ, and I thought to myself, hey, I'll give it a go. And I built this bloody car, and the frigging thing's too low. I gotta lift the car, maybe 150 or 2. I gotta lift it up, build it up, and make it with more run. I gotta make the motor bigger, talking all the stuff. I gotta have it there, and I said on the price. What do you think of that? And I said, it'll be nice. Now, I don't know a single word of that, so if it sounds crap, I don't know it.
With nearly 500 Ks to cover and 2 control sections, for some it was a pretty slow start after a fairly big night in Morven. First control proved to be one of the fastest on this year's Odyssey, and for those still a bit dusty, it wasn't that easy to stay on track. On a fast control, seconds count, and that's where good gate opening technique comes in handy. Little back road stunt that they swear was unintentional, the boys in car 76 ended up blazing their own trail before catching up with everyone down the track. Queensland pastoral country, it pays to keep an eye out for the locals. A few teams got a bit too comfortable on the bitumen. Was it distracted drivers, dozy navigators, or bad route notes? Either way, plenty of cars overshot this final turn-off. Travelling through Roma, a handball challenge saw the opportunity to put a few more points in the bag.
Hey, done well. Champion. Beautiful.
Then another stretch of highway to the day's lunch stop. Time to crank up some music, grab a bit of shut-eye or an audio book.
Robin installed Mrs. Hook on the sagging sofa beside her own desk and fetched her a cup of tea.
Every single one of Wallumbilla State School's 100 students were lined up to welcome the Odyssey to town.
My favourite car's the red one. My red one. My favourite is the big the big monster truck one at the end.
The green one right there. Yep, the pedal van.
My favourite car, the private car.
The one with the emu.
Yeah, the one with the emu.
Yeah. The dead emu.
Yep, country kids see their fair share of roadkill, so the stunt pulled on car 007 didn't faze them at all. The The afternoon control section took the teams through tall timber and plantation forests that proved to be a navigator's nightmare.
We should be turning right.
Most importantly, support car 14 with the coffee machine on board made it through with ease. But a few k's short of the finish, drivers faced their ultimate test of the day. Car 1928 gave it a red-hot try, and for a while it was touch and go if she'd start at all. The four-wheel drive support vehicles cruised through easily. Car 76, no problems at all. And with all that weight over the back wheels, the bug bounced on through. While drivers wait until the end of the day, a cold froth will always cool the wrath of an often abused navigator.
So we're looking for beer charity from the doctors. They do dispense medication, and this is a sorely needed salve for our wounds of the day. Cheers, guys.
No broken beers, see?
The final morning of another magnificent Outback Odyssey, and the Queensland weather doesn't disappoint. On the agenda today, a black tar run of around 275 k's that will take teams, support crew and officials all the way through to Queensland's Sunshine Coast. The poor old traffic warden had his hands full as the Odyssey rolled into Cotton Tree, a tiny beachside neighbourhood in Maroochydore. Cars were directed towards Ebb, a stunning riverfront terrace restaurant where Goody and Russell handed out some welcome cold beers and participation trophies for each arrival. Overlooking the Maroochy River, it was time to catch up with family and friends who had driven or flown in and enjoy some downtime in the sunshine. The Maroochydore Surf Club hosted the Odyssey's presentation night, a fitting venue for this motley crew who by vintage alone were certainly no strangers to combis and surf wagons. Dressing to the hippie theme was taken seriously, with no shortage of bad afros, flares and love beads in the crowd. It's a fair bet that some of these items came straight from the wardrobe. Mel, a local hairdresser, had donated her time to support the Flying Doctor. Paul Price offered up his precious golden locks in the ultimate sacrifice of the night. Another couple of hundred into the coffers, thanks to the ever-generous Doc.
$220, to cut the funny towel off. Bet $220, well done, Doc. There it is.
Yeah, wigs for kids.
In the tail of the donkey.
Then Russell took to the podium for the final time.
Probably with the shit I have put on everyone over the week, it would sort of be proper to apologise, but buggy I'm not going to, because you've all deserved. So we have in first place for the best presented car, car 6. Well done. Yeah, you can come up now.
You're a good-looking girl.
And the Roadblock winner for this year, first place, of course, 151.5 points, was car 1928. control winner for this year with 626.1 points is car 500. The Dead Shanahan winner for 2018 Oz Outback Odyssey is Josh Beattie. Well done, Josh. Overall winner for this year's Odyssey with 741.4 points, and it's car 76.
So we've managed to give $15,000 to Fort Community and $153,500 to...
Fun aside though, this is the reason why everyone's here. Thanks to sponsors, entrants and supporters, more than $153,000 was presented to the Royal Flying Doctor Service, taking the 5-year total to over $600,000. And it's all to keep the doctor flying.